So if you clicked on this video, that probably means that you have a slow car which you want to make faster. Well, stick around until the end, because in this video, I'm going to be going over some of the best mods you can do to make your slow vehicle fast. So for the first entry, I'm going to be talking about tunes. So for your vehicle, you've probably heard people talking about having chips in their engine or having their vehicle tuned. Basically, having your vehicle tuned just makes the engine work more efficiently, as opposed to stock, where it's simply made to work in the most reliable fashion it possibly can. Whereas if you get it tuned, it's still reliable, but it also works much more efficiently and generally can output more power. So if your vehicle is tuned with different mods, for example, like let's say you have a turbo, air intake, exhaust, everything, like a full build, you could be looking at up to 50 or 75 extra horsepower. Whereas if you have a stock vehicle, you're probably looking at between 25 and 50. So like I said earlier, there's different types of vehicle tunes. There's dyno tunes, there's chip tunes. Those two are like pretty much the most popular. A chip tune is quite literally a chip which plugs into your vehicle ECU, and you pretty much download a tune onto your vehicle. Whereas with a dyno tune, your vehicle is put onto a machine which is called a dyno, and that measures your vehicle's current performance and pretty much tunes your engine to be as efficient as possible. Dyno tuning, essentially, I'd say like dyno tuning is probably more efficient than chip tuning, whereas chip tuning is almost as efficient but much cheaper, where you can get a really good chip for around $250, but if you get a good dyno tune, that's upwards of $700 or $800. But personally, I'd say a dyno tune is more worth it, just because it gets your vehicle like exactly, whereas chip tunes are more for the type of vehicle you have or the type of engine you have, but it's not specific to your vehicle, it's specific to the make and model. So for the second entry, I'm going to be talking about weight reduction. So this is not exactly a mod. Not only is it not a mod, but it's actually free as well. So basically, it's exactly what it sounds like. Taking weight out of your vehicle. If you've ever heard of like power to weight ratio, it's essentially how powerful your vehicle is as opposed to how much it weighs. So let's say, for example, you have a 200 horsepower 8th gen Civic Si, and you have a Chrysler 300C, which has 340 horsepower. The 8th gen Civic Si has 200 horsepower, roughly, and weighs roughly 2,700 pounds. The 300 has over 100 more horsepower, but also weighs 1,300 pounds more. And in this case, the Civic would absolutely smoke the 300 because of its power to weight ratio. So yeah, pretty much the point of weight reduction is to make your vehicle weigh less, because if it weighs less, the engine has less to pull, therefore you're gonna go fast. And the best part about weight reduction is it's absolutely free. You can take out, some people completely strip their interiors, they only have one seat, they take off their dash and everything inside, whereas some people who have like two-door cars, like an Acura RSX, might just rip out the rear seats, which would probably only save them 20 or 30 pounds, but it's still enough to justify it if they're not dragging a bunch of people with them all the time. So for the third entry, I'm going to be talking about forced induction. So basically, forced induction is what it sounds like, forcing induction into your engine. So the three main, like most popular forms of forced induction are turbochargers, superchargers, and nitrous. So a turbocharger and supercharger sound fairly similar, and they kind of are, but they're also not. A turbocharger works by using the exhaust to spool it up, essentially, and sending power to your engine, whereas a supercharger sucks air directly into your engine and uses that to create more power and make your engine work more. So basically, the pros and cons to both are the turbocharger, it works more in the sense that it adds more power, but it takes more time to spool up and it wears your engine out much quicker. A supercharger, on the other hand, has instant power delivery, but it doesn't give as much power, and it also doesn't wear your engine as much as a turbocharger. It has a near negligible effect negatively on your engine, but a supercharged engine more than likely will not outlast a naturally aspirated engine. And finally, nitrous is basically a fuel which is sent into your engine, and it can add quite a lot of horsepower, but it is extremely extremely damaging to your engine, and it only works for a certain amount of time, whether it's 30 seconds or a minute. But it's very dangerous to use on an engine that either doesn't have reinforced internals or is just generally weaker than other engines. For the fourth entry, I'm going to be talking about tires. So this is like a really important but also overlooked part of having a fast vehicle. Your tires are the only thing that make contact with the ground, and a lot of people don't really think about that when getting tires. They might just get normal tires, whereas if you have like a 700 horsepower built vehicle and you have normal tires as opposed to the same vehicle with performance tires, the vehicle with performance tires will be able to grip faster and more efficiently, which in turn will make it more powerful. In fact, if you have like a 700 horsepower car and the same car with 5 or 600, and the 700 has normal tires, the 5 or 600 has performance tires, the 5 or 600 horsepower car is going to smoke the 700 horsepower car. That's how important tires are. They're the only thing that touches the ground. And if you have just like bare tires that have been used a lot or just aren't in good condition, your vehicle is not going to be able to grip properly, and you simply won't be able to use all of the power in your engine because your vehicle is just going to have the wheels constantly spinning and they won't be able to grip properly. And in the fifth entry, I'm going to be talking about engine swaps. So this is one of those things that you really need to either know what you're doing or have a lot of money. In some cases, engine swaps can be easy. So for example, if you have an old Honda Civic and you want to put a newer Honda K-Series or H-Series engine into it, that will probably be easy because you're essentially retrofitting a newer engine from the same brand into an older vehicle. Honda Civics are also very easy to engine swap, as opposed to, as an example, an Infiniti G35. It would be extremely difficult to try and fit a V8 into a G35. Like, let's say you want to put a Ford Coyote engine into a G35. You'd need to not only retrofit it, but you'd also need a lot of aftermarket parts, which might not even be available, which would make it extremely difficult. Like, if you were to try and retrofit a newer engine into a very old car, which has pretty much no aftermarket support, you'd have to make all the mounts and just everything that would connect your engine to the vehicle. You'd have to create mounts and you'd have to make sure the engine actually fits. So that would be extremely difficult. Whereas if you get a vehicle that is easier to mod, like a Ford Ranger, for example, a third generation Ford Ranger, which was made from, I think, 2001 to 2009. I might be wrong about that, but like, they're really popular for engine swapping, whether you're putting in an LS or a 2 or 3 valve 4.6. They're just good vehicles to engine swap. Whereas it would be more difficult if you were to try and retrofit, let's say, a Honda K-Series into it, because that's such an unpopular engine swap. It would be hard to find aftermarket parts for it, which in turn would mean that you'd have to quite literally retrofit it in, which would make it quite difficult. So be aware, if you plan on engine swapping a car, that it's either going to cost a lot of money or it might take a lot of work. But regardless, it's a really good way to get more power from vehicles. Like, again, if you have a base model Civic, old one, you can't really engine swap newer vehicles as easy. But if you have like an old Civic and you want to put a newer Honda engine into it, that would be fairly easy because they have such aftermarket support. There's so much parts available for it that it would just be easy to get parts and find someone to work on it, or do it assuming you can't do it yourself. So yeah, those are some of the best mods you can do to make your slow car fast. If you like content like this, then please feel free to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me what mods I may have missed, and I'll probably do a part 2 to this video.